The Assyriology channel is dedicated to the study of ancient Mesopotamia and the ancient Near East. The following presentation is a geographic overview of the cities and temples of ancient Mesopotamia, going from the south to the north. Mesopotamia is a geographic term of Greek origin that is used to refer to the land surrounding the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The Sumerian terms for these two rivers were the Idigna and the Buranuna. The Sumerian term for the region was Kianger. In the 6th millennium BCE, Lower Mesopotamia went through environmental changes that made it more hospitable to urbanization, causing settlements to increase in number and in size. This region consisted of approximately 320 kilometers, or 200 miles, between Sippar and the Gulf via the western route around the Euphrates, and 344 kilometers, or 214 miles, via the eastern route around the Tigris River. The Persian Gulf provided the region with access to distant lands, such as Dilmun, Magan, and Meluḥħa. Some of the major cities in the region included Eridu, Arama, Unug, Bad-tibira, Lagash, Umma, Adab, Shuruppak, Isin, Nippur, Kish, and Zippar. In the south, bordering where the coast of the Gulf used to be located, was Eridu. The city was founded sometime around 5400 BCE, and it was the first city mentioned in the Sumerian king list. The settlement reached a size of 8 to 10 hectares, or 20 to 25 acres, with an estimated population of 3,000 to 6,000 people. The main mound at the site is a half a kilometer in diameter and rises 25 meters. The city went into decline after the Ubaid period. However, it seems to have gained some significance during the Ur-III period. During Assyrian times, doctors would travel to Eridu to study medicine. It was finally abandoned during the 6th century BCE. Eridu was well known for its many temples. The patron deity of the city was Enki, whose temple was called the Isin, which means House of the Subterranean Waters. The main shrine inside of the temple was the Iduku, which means House which is a holy mound. Located on the outskirts of Eridu was the Kurara district, where the local cult was dedicated to Enki's son Asarluhi. An unfinished ziggurat was built at the site during the reign of Amar-Sin and was named the Urnur, or House which is a ziggurat. Located approximately 12 kilometers or 8 miles to the northeast of Eridu was Ur. The settlement was first established during the Ubaid period and was inhabited until it was abandoned sometime after 500 BCE. The walled section of the settlement covered about 61 hectares. In modern times, the coast of the Gulf is located to the south of the site. However, during the Sumerian period, the site bordered the coast of the Gulf, and Ur was considered a port city. The city had a diverse economy, and it was an important trade center for goods moving between Mesopotamia and the Gulf. Ur was often a prosperous city, and at times it functioned as an important seat of power. The patron deity of Ur was Nana. His temple there was the Kish, which means house sending light to the earth. Ur also had a cult dedicated to Nana's wife Ningal, whose temple there was the Agrunkug. Another popular cult at Ur was the cult of Ningishzida, whose temple there was called the Idigna, which means house of truth. The temple of Anana located at Ur was called the Dilmun. During the Ur-III period, Ur-Nemu started the building of a ziggurat, which was completed under the ruler Shulgi. The ziggurat at Ur was called the Temen Niguru, which means house whose foundation creates radiance. The next major city going north from Ur was Arama. Arama is often referenced by its Akkadian name Larsa. The site was occupied from the early Ubaid period up until the Persian conquest. It covers an oval of about 7 kilometers or 4.5 miles in circumference. The highest point of the tell is about 70 feet in height. The population of the city at its height is estimated to have ranged somewhere in between 18 to 24,000 people. The patron deity of Arama was Utu. His temple at Arama was called the Babar, which means shining house. There was also a local cult at Arama dedicated to Sharida, the wife of Utu. Located approximately 57 kilometers or 35 miles to the northwest of was Unug. Unug is often referred to by its Akkadian name Uruk. The settlement was first established during the Ubaid period. By the early dynastic period, Unug had reached a size of 400 hectares. The area of the site at its height measured a massive 600 hectares. Unug declined after the III period. However, the site was revived several times before becoming uninhabited 2,000 years later during the Sasanian period. Both An and Anana were the patron deities of Unug. The main temple of the city was called the Anki, which means House of Heaven and Earth. The city was divided into two sections, the older Anu district, which was walled off from the Ana district. Located approximately 10 kilometers or 6 miles to the northeast of Arama on the Itirungal Canal was Bad-tibira. The settlement was occupied between 3,500 until around 2000 BCE. The site has never been officially excavated, and thus very few texts are known for Bad-tibira. The name of the city means Fortress of Metalworkers. The main cult at Bad-tibira during the Sumerian period was dedicated to Dumunzi, the shepherd, and his wife Inanna. There was also a cult dedicated to Lulal, which appears to have been an older patron deity of the city. The temple of Inanna and Dumunzi at Bad-tibira was called the Mush Kalama, which means house which is a sacred precinct of the land. Located approximately 79 kilometers or 49 miles upriver from using the canals that connect the Euphrates to the Tigris, was Umma. The settlement was founded in the beginning of the 3rd millennium. The Umma province is estimated by Steinkiller to have been approximately 2,000 square kilometers in size. The population of that province is estimated to have reached its height at almost 20,000 people during the III period. During the III period, Umma was surrounded by over 100 minor settlements that ranged in size from tiny hamlets to small towns. The patron deity of the city was Shara. The Ima, which means magnificent house, and the Sigsig, which means house with beautiful bowls, were the names of the temple of Shara at Umma. The city also had a local cult to the goddess Inanna, and her temple there was called the Ibgal. Located approximately 26 kilometers or 16 miles from Umma, going down the Tigris River, was Lagash. The ancient site of Ninna is around 10 kilometers or 6 miles away and marks the southern limit of the Lagash state. Nearby Gersu, located about 25 kilometers or 15.5 miles to the northwest of Lagash, was a religious center for the Lagash state. The Lagash province was approximately 600 hectares or 1,480 acres in size. The mound at the site measures roughly 3 kilometers by 1.5 kilometers, or 2 miles by 1 mile, diagonally with a riverbed running through the center of it. The population of Lagash during the III period has been estimated by Robert McCormick Adams to have been in the range of 3 to 4 times that of Umma, which he cites Steinkiller as having estimated to be just below 20,000 people. This would place the population of Lagash in the range of 60,000 to 80,000 people, thus making Lagash one of the largest city-states in ancient Mesopotamia, both in population and in landmass. The patron deity of Lagash was Ningirsu. His temple there was called the Ninu, which means the House of 50. The full form of the name was the Ininu Anzu Mushin Babar, which means the House of 50, shining Anzu bird. The sun god Utu had a temple at Lagash that was called the I-Babar, which means the shining house. Inanna had a temple located at Lagash called the I-Anana, which means the house of heaven. Located in the Sierra district of Lagash was the temple of Nanch, which was called the I-Aga Sulim, which means the house of awesome radiance. Located in the Gersu district was the temple of Gishber and the temple of Gatamdug. Other deities that had important cults in Lagash included Baba, Damunzi Abzu, Agalim, Masalamtia, Ninazu, Nindara, Ninhursaga, Ninshubur, Hendersag, Nindub, Ninmar, and Shulshaga. Located upriver from Umma on the Tigris River was Adab. The city rose to prominence in the early dynastic period, and it remained an important settlement until the Old Babylonian period. The mounds at the site are about 1.5 kilometers or 1 mile long and 3 kilometers or 2 miles wide. The city walls were contained in a rectangle measuring 1,695 by 840 meters. The walls appear to have been double layered, with a 5-meter thick inner wall surrounded by a 2-meter thick outer wall, separated by several meters. The city walls were surrounded by a moat. The patron deity of Adab was the goddess Ninhursaga. Her temple was called the Umma, which means the exalted house. The Umma was a later temple with a foundation of bricks built on top of the ruins of an older temple that was called the Isar. The Isar was made of limestone. Meluḥħa, who was a ruler who claimed the title of King of Kish, claimed to have restored the Isar sometime around 2550 BCE. Texts refer to the temple of Inanna and Adab called the Ishara. Located approximately 48 kilometers or 30 miles north of Unug was Šuruppak. The oldest excavated layers of Šuruppak go back to the Jemmet Nasr period. Šuruppak was a large city. At its height during the early dynastic period, Šuruppak reached a size of about 200 hectares, with about 35 hectares of the mound being above the 3-meter contour. The site extends about a kilometer from north to south. The population of the city has been estimated to have been somewhere between 15,000 to 30,000 people. The patron deity of Šuruppak was the mother goddess Sud, who is syncretized with Ninlil through the Sumerian myth Enlil and Sud. The deity also became syncretized with several other minor healing and mother goddesses over time. The next major city going north from Šuruppak was Isin. The site was occupied as early as the Ubaid period. The Isin-Needham Canal connected Isin to a set of waterways that connected the cities of Mesopotamia. The tell at the site is about 100 hectares in area and about 1.5 kilometers or a mile across, with a maximum height of 8 meters or 26 feet. The patron deity at Isin was Ninasina, or Gula. Ninasina was associated with dogs, which were associated with medicine in ancient Mesopotamia. Her temple at Isin was the Idigna, which means house of dogs. Ninasina, or Gula, was eventually syncretized with several other goddesses, including Bao, Ninkarak, Baba, Gatamdug, Mimi, Ninezin, or Nintenuga. Nibru, or Nippur, was located in the center of Lower Mesopotamia, and by the late dynastic period, it was considered a border between the southern region of Kiangar, the land of the Sumerians, and the northern region, which was occupied by Semites that would be later known as the Akkadians. It was for this reason that it is believed that Enmebaragesi, king of Kish, made Nibru the holy city of Mesopotamia, elevating the patron deity of Nibru Enlil to the head of the national pantheon. Nibru was located approximately 160 kilometers or 100 miles up the Euphrates River from 100 kilometers or 60 miles upriver from Unug, 56 kilometers or 35 miles upriver from Šuruppak, and 32 kilometers or 20 miles upriver from Isin. The journey to Nibru from Umma via canals and various waterways was 81 kilometers or 50 miles. The distance between Nibru and Lagash was 107 kilometers or 66 miles as the crow flies. The distance between Nibru and Adab was approximately 35 kilometers or 21 miles as the crow flies. The archaeological site rises nearly 20 meters high and occupies an area of 150 hectares or 1.5 square kilometers. The city's history extends from the early 6th millennium, the Ubaid period, until approximately 800 AD, with intermittent breaks of occupation. Nibru was foremost a holy city. The east side of Nibru had a temple complex called the Duranki. The Duranki is where many of the temples of Nibru were located, such as the temples dedicated to Enlil, Ninlil, Enki, and Anana. The patron deity of Nibru was Enlil, who was elevated to the supreme deity and the head of the pantheon during the early dynastic period. His temple at Nippur was the Ikur, which means house which is a mountain. Other cults located at Nibru included the cult of Enlil's wife Ninlil, whose temple was the Tumul, which means tumul house, the cult of Nuska, whose temple was the Millennium, which means house of terrifying radiance. The shrine inside it was called the Umma, which means magnificent shrine. There was a cult of Ninurta, whose temple was the Mirana, which means house which gathers the divine powers of heaven. There was also a cult that worshipped Ninshubur, whose temple at Nibru was the Akelduku, which means house of lamentation, or perhaps house of pure mound. There was also a cult of Ninimma, whose shrine was the Idigna, which means house of the angry eye. The ziggurat at Nibru was the Hersag, which means house of the mountain wind. Kish was located just over 100 kilometers or 62 miles to the north of Nibru. The modern archaeological site consists of a cluster of around 40 mounds. Kish was inhabited around approximately 5000 BCE during the Ubaid period up until the 6th century AD when it was abandoned. Around the beginning of the 3rd millennium BCE, southern Mesopotamia was devastated by a series of floods that caused the region to go into decline. Kish was in a unique position after these floods to dominate the devastated lands of southern Mesopotamia and was the seat of the first post-Diluvian dynasty. From that point on, the title King of Kish held an important political significance, implying the ruler holds kingship over all of Mesopotamia. The patron deity of Kish was Zababa, and his wife Inanna, or Ishtar. Zababa was a warrior god of Semitic origins that in later times became correlated with deities such as Enlil and Ninurta. The temples of Zababa at Kish was the Idubba, which means storage house. His sanctuary there was the Inum, which means house of the pure word. The temple of Inanna, or Ishtar, at Kish was the Hersag Kalama, which means mountain of the lands. The ziggurat at Kish was the Inur Kitusma, which means house which is the tower of the exalted abode. Located approximately 60 kilometers or 38 miles to the north of Kish was Zimbir, also called Sippar. The Euphrates River split the settlement into twin cities. The city on the east side of the Euphrates River was referred to as Zimbir Yarurum. The sister city on the west side of the Euphrates was referred to as Zimbir Amnanum. The site at Zimbir was first occupied during the Uruk period. However, urbanization did not begin there until the early dynastic period, and it remained occupied until Parthian times. The main mound at the site measures over 1 square kilometer. The patron deity at Zimbir was the Semitic solar deity Shamash, who was later syncretized with the Sumerian solar deity Utu. The temple of Shamash at Zimbir was the Ibabar, which means shining house, and the Nun Ana, which means house of the Prince of Heaven. The patron deity of the sister city, Zimbir Amnanum, was the local deity Enanidum. Zimbir, or Sippar, functioned as the northern border city for the region of Lower Mesopotamia. To the northwest lies the lands of Mari, through which trade goods could have been brought from cities as far away as Ebla and Qatna in the western Fertile Crescent. To the north lies the small settlements of Upper Mesopotamia. It was not until later, during Assyrian times, that the lands of Upper Mesopotamia would develop the high population density cities of Lower Mesopotamia. To the northeast lies the lands of Eshnunna. To the east lies the lands of Elam. The Zagros Mountains acted as a physical border between Mesopotamia and Elam. Dur acted as a trading stop between these lands. I hope you've enjoyed this geographic overview of the cities and temples of ancient Mesopotamia. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for future videos on ancient Mesopotamia.